Construction worker. Yeah.
Recordings of my like 90s left, like ropers.
Classic. It's just a lemon.
Yeah, we are ready to go.
Wherever.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Go ahead and find your seat. I know we're starting a little bit late. I apologize about that. It's super exciting to see so many people here. So my name is Patrick Priest. I'm the co-chair of this committee, Management Labor Advisory Committee. And I'm also the executive director of CIS, but we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit later. And we normally do these meetings virtually or in a room in Salem, and we don't have as many people. So it's very exciting. We might be a little nervous. So don't hold that against us. So I'm just going to do our regular meeting. We start each meeting because sometimes we talk about difficult things with workers' compensation and a balance between labor and management. So we start with an affirmation that my co-chair, Scott Strickland, wrote, which is, we would like to thank everyone for their time, effort, and participation in our work before us today. We want to recognize that it's very difficult and important work, and we appreciate and value the perspectives and professionalism that everyone brings here today. Thank you. We say that we start each meeting with that. We don't have anything tough to talk about today, I don't think. But I just wanted to give you the whole deal since you showed up. All right, and then we do a roll call to make sure we can vote, and our administrator, Terry Watson, normally runs us through that.
Okay, Sarah Merrick. Present. Ooh, we're all in the same room. Sarah Duckwall is not here with us today. Co-chair Strickland.
Here.
Ryan Hearn.
Present.
Margaret Woodall here. Stacy Llewellyn. Present. Emily Crum here. Co-chair Priest.
Present.
Kim Schlesinger is in Florida. And Director O'Day.
I'm here.
We have a quorum.
All right, well, thank you very much, Terry. We do call out time for public comment at each of our meetings. We limit it to 3 minutes. And so I understand nobody has signed up for it, but there is an opportunity to make public comment if anybody wanted to. All these people, so no public comment. We're gonna do a Q&A later, so we have a chance.
Yeah, and I don't see anything online.
Okay, thank you, Terry. All right, so we do have one bit of business to take care of, and that's to review the minutes from 3 prior meetings, the February 5th, March 5th, and April 2nd meetings. They've been distributed to us as a committee that we're going to vote on it, but they're also available online on the MLAC website that anybody could look at if you were curious. So with that, do I have a motion to approve those minutes from anybody on the committee?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Emily.
Second.
And Ryan seconds. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All right, we're nervous a little bit, but all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Motion carries. So we've got those minutes taken care of. All right, and then with that, we always do department updates, and we have a couple. The first is a Workers' Compensation Board case law update from Autumn Blake.
And she is virtual.
And she's online.
Can you hear me okay?
Just a second. We're going to turn up the volume just a little bit. Or let me go over to the owl and turn up the owl a little bit. Try again, Autumn.
How was that?
It's a little better.
Okay, does it help if I speak up?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Co-Chair Priest and Co-Chair Strickland and members of the committee. The board does not have any updates today.
We're all a little nervous. All right, thank you, Ms. Blake. Next on the agenda is a division update from Terry.
And the division does not have any updates today.
All right, well, there's a theme here. All right, with that, we're gonna hand it off to the WCD Administrator, Matt West, who is going to tell us all a little bit about MLAC and walk us through a program.
Can you all hear me? Perfect. For those that attended the conference today, I apologize. You have to listen to me again. I'll try not to repeat, but I get one announcement from the division is we're having a workers' compensational educational conference today. Happy that we're able to have MLAC here. So how many of you have never attended an MLAC meeting before? Great, this is awesome. All right, so I'm going to give an overview and then we'll get a chance to meet the members. So one of the unique parts of Oregon's workers' compensation system is the Management Labor Advisory Committee, or MLAC, which provides a forum for business and labor to meet, to explore, discuss, and resolve issues within the workers' compensation system. I talked about it a little bit this morning in the keynote, and then if you were in the legislative updates with me, you heard some about it too. But a little bit of history. In 1990, we're going way back, Oregon was one of the most expensive states in the country for workers' compensation in the nation. I said that in the state, yep. So much so that the governor at the time, Governor Goldschmidt, invited a group of workers and employers to Mahoning Hall, which is the governor's residence, to help fix the broken workers' compensation system. The changes developed by the group were then adopted by the legislature in a one-day special session on May 7th of 1990. How many of you remember watching that on TV? Oh, we do, so. Yeah. Yep. I was in like 8th grade and we huddled around the TV and we were just like, you know, it's like the moon landing, that was our moon landing, was the Hall reforms. And so those changes became known as the Mahoning Hall reforms and really did transform Oregon's workers' compensation system and helped it become one of the most successful in the nation. If you heard some of the stuff I shared this morning, it's really attributed to those reforms, and MLAC plays a big part in that. Some of the other changes that were part of those reforms in 1990 was the creation of the Ombuds Office for Oregon Workers. I think Barb, our Ombuds Office, you probably saw her if you were in the perspective of the injured worker earlier today. And then our Small Business Ombudsman, Julie's here representing, she's the assistant. So both of those offices were created as part of those reforms to help workers and to help employers navigate the system. The Preferred Worker Program, which hopefully you've heard about multiple times today, one of Oregon's nationally recognized return to work programs, was created during the Mahoning Hall reforms also. And we had Charity, the manager of that program. Zoe gave a presentation earlier. And then the formation of the Management Labor Advisory Committee were the major changes that happened in 1990. So the committee itself is made up of 5 labor representatives and 5 manager representatives who provide advice to the Oregon legislature and the governor about legislative and other proposals affecting the workers' compensation system or the Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 656. So really, if a bill related to workers' compensation is introduced, it most likely needs to be discussed at MLAC before receiving serious consideration at the legislature. And as you know, workers' compensation is complicated, complex, so the legislature really relies on the committee to kind of vet out those proposed changes and try to strike that balance I was talking about of an equitable workers' compensation system, which is why there's equal parts labor and equal part management represented on the committee. When MLAC is reviewing proposed changes to the system, they follow a set of guiding principles. So their guiding principles are balance and fairness. So like I just mentioned, they want to make sure that the change that's proposed meets the needs of both workers and employers. Adequacy, affordability, efficiency, stability and flexibility, and predictability. Those are the guiding principles that MLAC is keeping in mind as they're considering whether or not to support a potential legislative change. We'll talk more with the members in a bit about how they use those guiding principles when they do their work, but just a little bit about the committee. So they hold monthly meetings. They meet more often during legislative sessions to discuss the bills that affect workers' compensation system. Oftentimes, at the beginning of a legislative session, they'll be meeting every week to vet out and weigh in on those proposals. They can form subcommittees. If you were here earlier, you heard me talk about the summer of subcommittees that we just had in 2025. The result of that, right? We talked about two major changes to the law, one addressing adequacy of benefits for low-wage workers and the other access to care. Those are the direct result of MLAC reviewing legislation in 2025, feeling like this is too important to rush. Let's take some time, creating subcommittee, which each subcommittee had two co-chairs, so they volunteered their time. And then I think I had some stats, but we had I think an average of 40 or 50 people, stakeholders attending those subcommittee meetings to weigh in, so that the committee could get a good view of the scope of the issues that we're discussing, and then they were able to make recommendations that turned into actual legislative changes. One of the things that this particular MLAC group is interested is getting out into different communities around the state to hear from workers, employers about their experiences and challenges. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today. We started this last year, 2 years ago, actually, maybe it was both last year. Anyway, we were in the Hood River area, or the Dalles.
The Dallas.
The Dalles, same thing. The Gorge, we're in the Gorge. Not the same thing, okay. Neighbors. So we started in the Gorge and held a MLAC meeting there. And then last year in the fall, we were over in Bend. And then somebody came up with a great idea, like, hey, we're having this workers' compensation educational conference. We have workers' comp practitioners here. Let's add the meeting to the end of the conference and look at the attendance. That's fantastic. And then in June, we're going to do the same thing that we're doing here today. We're going to go do that in Pendleton in conjunction with an Oregon OSHA conference. So really, different areas of the state might have different impacts or different issues that they're dealing with in the workers' compensation system. They really want to hear about that. It's like I said, the committee would like to hear from each of you. So before we get into that, I'm going to have each of the members, they're going to introduce themselves, tell a little bit about them, how they got involved in MLAC, what industries they represent. They're all bringing a different viewpoint, and just kind of how they ended up in MLAC and why they spend their time volunteering for it, because they're not paid. As I mentioned, there are 5 management and 5 labor representatives appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to our co-chairs, Patrick Priest and Scott Strickland, to kick things off on just each of them introducing themselves and talking a little bit about their involvement in MLAC and their industry.
Thank you very much, Matt. I was going to defer to Director O'Day, who's sitting with us, and you're a member of the committee, and just let you go first. And I'm orderly, so we'll go in order.
Thank you, Co-Chair Priest. Yeah, I'm kind of in an unusual position with regards to the committee. I am actually paid to participate. My name is Sean O'Day. I'm the Director of the Department of Consumer and Business Services. And the reason why I serve on the committee is because statutorily, the director of the agency holds an ex officio non-voting membership on the committee, ex officio meaning of the office. And I don't vote, I don't participate in the caucuses. Really, my role is to help represent the department and support the committee in their important work that they do. How long have I been on the committee? All of about 5 months, as I was confirmed by the Oregon State Senate to this position in November, I think on the day that we were meeting in MLAC, actually, that afternoon. So that's a little bit about me and the role that I play.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'm Patrick Priest. I'm the co-chair, management side of MLAC, and my day job where I get paid is to be the executive director of CIS Trust, which is a risk pool that insures cities and counties in Oregon, and almost all of them, for every kind of insurance we underwrite except work comp. And when we have a partnership with SAFE, we used to underwrite that ourselves, but we joined forces with them and now do risk management servicing and just sort of coordinating that with our liability programs, our vehicle programs. It all kind of interrelates. So in my background, I moved here to Colorado for this job. I worked for the risk pool in Colorado for a number of years, which was a work comp, is still a work comp carrier for most of the cities in Colorado. So that's my background. That's my interest, in workers' compensation. And I first came on to MLAC, it is about 5 years ago now, 4 years ago, something, the same time as Scott, or no, you were there before me.
But, yeah.
They're 3-year terms, and I just started my second one. And I was introduced to the committee by my predecessor, the executive director I took over for, and she was on the committee for, I think, 6 years. And it is, you know, coming out of the committee, I knew a bit about workers' compensation, but I really learned a lot about the detail and how much I didn't know. And it's been super interesting to learn the nuts and bolts of something that I knew, like on a certain level, learning it deeper and deeper. I think also too, what really drew me to it is that it's a balance, 5 and 5, it's fair. Like when we vote on things, it really has to be something that everyone agrees upon, which I wish all of our elected processes work that way, just a plug for that. So it's really kind of nice, and I really feel like we're able to stay a little bit out of politics because of that, because it's really about people, you know, underlying it all, like injured workers, small business owners, you know, so it's really about important things in our communities, and that's what I enjoy about it. I think I answered all the questions, right? Okay, and then I'll hand it off to Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Hearn. I've been with MLAC, this will be my 4th year. So I just got approved for another 3 years. Looking forward to that. Let's see here. I represent management. I'm currently employed by Androl Industries. They are a tech defense company down in California. But prior to that, I was with Roseburg Forest Products, a self-insured employer in Oregon. That's really how I got involved with MLAC. In fact, Anne from Majoris here actually gave me the plug of MLAC, suggested signing up when we were meeting with MCOs to see if that's something that we wanted to get into at Roseburg. And as soon as I found out about MLAC, I was very excited to apply and very excited to get nominated onto the committee. So happy to be here. Let's see, before Roseburg Forest Products, I was a claims examiner. I started out at a desk doing MOs, working to an indemnity, eventually making that hop over to the employer. So I've seen kind of all stages of workers' comp, and I think I add a unique perspective to the committee that hopefully, advocates for adjusters, employers, and injured workers, right? We all want to see success in the industry. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Sarah Merrick. I have been on MLAC about the same time as Ryan, also about to start my 2nd term. I represent the industry if I'm a firefighter paramedic in the city of Salem. So I understand emergency workers, police officers, EMS firefighters. We're not exactly a risk averse job place. And so any chance to learn about workers' comp, this has been a huge learning opportunity and an opportunity to represent workers in the state, which kind of falls in line. I like taking care of people, it turns out. I ended up on MLAC from my predecessor was Joe Fullerton, Schlosser Fullerton from Clackamas Fire, and got information about this. And again, I'm not one to pass up opportunity to learn. And so I just feel strongly, I live in the capital city. I work for the people of the capital city and get to see many of you there. And so it's another opportunity to represent.
Good afternoon, all. Thanks for sticking with us. I understand you guys have been here all day, so thank you. My name is Stacy Llewellyn. I am with a construction company called Fortis Construction here in Oregon. And I've been in the construction industry for far too long, like 3rd decade, far too long. So I have always been engaged with the worker comp program from the employer side. So really appreciate the work that MLAC does, and it's actually been enlightening being part of the committee. I've been on the committee for about 2.5 years. I think my renewal is this fall, so enjoying the work so far. Again, I represent the construction industry as a management member. And so really coming at it from the employer experience is where I have that direct knowledge, but definitely passionate about making sure we have a fair, balanced approach to worker comp and really trying to identify those areas that need improvement and what we can do to move that needle. I ended up on MLAC, an industry association, Associated General Contractors had reached out and asked if I'd be willing to throw my hat in the ring and help represent the construction industry. And so that's what landed me here. And again, I volunteer on MLAC really to try to bring a voice from some experience that I have and continuing to learn, and also just really provide that fair, balanced approach. I think that's what's important to me, is making sure we're considering all the factors that need to be considered and then making the proper decisions that benefit at least most. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. Scott Strickland, he, him, Special Projects Council for Smart Local 16, representing just over 2,000 sheet metal workers across most of Oregon and a chunk of Southwest Washington. I've been on MLAC, I think I'm the longest serving at this point, 2020, I want to say. It was difficult. I kind of got involved in 2019, but really actually got on formally in 2020. So industry members I represent, 2,000 sheet metal workers. For those of you that don't know what a sheet metal worker is, it's folks that work on HVAC, a lot of the ducts, the fans, the filters, put in all of that. Also do some exterior metal and some heavy production work as well, heavy fabrication welding in shops. And all of that is obviously you're the softest, squishiest thing on most job sites for construction. So there are a lot of folks that unfortunately come across the work comp system. So, working in construction, I came from the field and representing them. I was actually a medically stationary worker, or am still medically stationary, I guess. Had gone through an injury at work, had gone through MCO enrollment, had gone through, being taken off work and then put on light duty and then taken back off and then put back on and then put, into a medically stationary status eventually. So all of that process and having done that with, perfect fluency in English, having a law degree when I went through this process, it was a struggle. So, had a friend from law school who was co-chair, labor co-chair at the time, Diana Winther, with the Electricians General Council of 48. And she said, oh yeah, we're dealing with this issue about some enrollment and some issues, you should come down and just see. And I remember coming down in a t-shirt and jeans to sit in the back of the room, hopefully back over there. And there weren't that many people in the room. So they pulled everybody up to the table and just said, oh, everybody come on, sit around here. So I got to sit, I think it was between, a management member on my left and UFCW member on my right. And there's Safe and Ola facing off about an issue. And it was like, wow, okay, this is not what I signed up for, but interesting. And then Diana was like coaxing me to actually get me involved in the discussion, which I finally yielded and thought, okay, well, this is unique. This is an interesting situation where, as we've all kind of mentioned, it's not just bipartisan, it's kind of multi-partisan in this weird way where you have 7 to 10 kind of different interest groups all coming together to try and make a system that works, because if the system doesn't work for any one party, it doesn't work for anybody in a sense, in kind of a unique way when we're dealing with this. So I think that's, kind of how I ended up on MLAC and why I continue to volunteer time. I think, the subcommittee work that we did was really important and really fruitful. Thank you again, Stacy, for all the time that you spent on that and the difficult work that we did, and the stakeholder engagement and how that drives everything, I think is really exciting and interesting to see and to have things come out of the woodwork. And I've been on here for almost 6 years at this point, and I'm still learning things all the time. And there'll be some issue that comes up and it's like, wow, I didn't even think about that, So I think it's exciting and new in an interesting and meaningful way.
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Emily Cronin. I am an RN. I work at the Oregon Nurses Association. For those of you who do not know, we represent about 25,000 healthcare workers across the state. Nurses, but another additional 17 or 18 different disciplines in large systems and in small systems. RN by trade, not from here originally. I worked in 7 different states. I've been in Oregon since 2019. Admittedly, I was voluntold to be on this committee about 1.5 years ago. We really, ONA advocates strongly for nurses being in positions of either leadership or opportunities to advise. And sometimes our members are busy, and so it's me instead. And I'm super glad that I did. This is incredibly interesting work. It's a great opportunity to sort of align with a lot of the problems we're seeing in Oregon around healthcare failures in general, right? It's still trying to provide care for our communities, and how do we do that in a sustainable way? Having a background as a medical professional and then understanding a little bit about the system, I think brings a lot of additional insight to the committee, and then being relatively new to both the union and anything related to the legislature, I ask a lot of questions. And I think that is great in the way that it opens up a lot of discussion, and beyond me learning, I think it allows others to learn as well. And that is why I guess continue.
My name is Margaret Waddell, and I'm also on the labor side. I don't get paid by anybody. When I was employed, I represented injured workers for a little over 30 years. And then I served on the Workers' Compensation Board for 9 years. I retired, and well, I also taught at Lewis and Clark Law School. I taught workers' compensation. And I think how I got on MLAC is I've always been really interested in this 3-part responsibility for worker safety. And this, I've always believed that there has to be a combination, a coalition of the workers, the union, and the employers to create a really robust safety system to eliminate as many injuries as can possibly be eliminated, but also recognizing that there are inevitably going to be injuries, and then looking at what our society has done to how those injuries are going to be paid for. And that's a really interesting policy decision. I find it fascinating. I don't know why I find it so fascinating, but I do. And so that fascination brought me to MLAC. Oh, and I've been on here 5 years.
Great, thank you. Interesting, right? All different backgrounds, perspectives. I also want to mention really quickly those that actually keep the committee running. We have Terry Watson and Baba Ampa. They're both employees of WCD, and part of their job is to help support the work that MLAC does, setting up the meetings, meeting minutes, all of the hard work behind the scenes that helps them. So we have a few minutes. We started a little late, so we're gonna go for a few more minutes. But really, part of what MLAC want to do when they're getting out in the communities is hear from you all. So, are there any pain points or issues within the workers' compensation system that you see in your work that you would like to bring to MLAC's attention or ask them about? And I have a mic. Perfect.
Hi, my name is Beth Bunt, and I actually represent Evergreen Family Medicine, Occupational Medicine out of Roseburg. And I want to first thank the committee for everything that you guys did with your subcommittee on access to care. That was really amazing. And with that, I actually have a question for you. Actually, I have 2. I wanted to know, in hearing about all the providers that you guys heard, all of their testimony and the things, the barriers that they had, how much of that are you going to take forward in the decisions that you're making? And then my second question is, are you ready for another letter in your meeting? Because I think MPLAC might be okay too.
I mean, essentially, right, bringing back the recommendations that we did from the end of the subcommittee, the initial charge for that quickly morphed into a much larger conversation, right? Which we, if you're in the healthcare space, are already aware of, right? And so it's a great opportunity for us to carry that forward. What that's going to look like, I don't have concrete plans yet, but it is something that comes to the attention. We're looking at how to continue to engage stakeholders, how to bring additional stakeholders in. And then when we look at, as we continue to hear the same problems, what are those solutions going to look like? And then who do we need to connect with to try and begin to make that happen? So yes, but not in a concrete way.
Yeah, and I think that, so Emily was on the subcommittee as one of the subcommittee chairs for labor. So big shout out to Emily and Kim, wherever, Kim's Oregon, right? Yes, okay. So for all of that hard work, I think for us, having myself, not as a provider, I think it was very eye-opening to kind of review that and go through all the testimony and understand all of that process. I think having members of our broader committee kind of doing that work and training us up on that, you know, when we have huddles for labor or huddles for management, I'm sure it's the same. There's like little bits of that institutional knowledge as we work on these issues and move forward on things that get added to bills in the future, or that get added to concepts in the future, or that we ask these questions and it's kind of a very fluid concept between stakeholders sort of educating us kind of trying to direct stakeholders, and then the legislature sort of working through all that process on all sides, that I think is really, it's been surprising to me a lot of the ways where there'll be an idea that sort of floats out there in the ether for 4 years, and then magically it comes forward as a bill for us, and maybe we've already done the work on it, or maybe it's something that it's like, oh, well, we did half the work on this, and so we'll put it in subcommittee, we'll do the other half, kind of a thing. So I think that, again, tons of amazing work. I think as Emily pointed out, that opened up 500 other questions and pulled in a bunch of other things that, as volunteers, we're very committed to working on, but don't have the capacity to do in one bite, kind of a thing. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I'll just add, you know, out of that subcommittee came a number of recommendations for the division, who writes a lot of the rules and the fee schedule, that we're looking at internally to help make improvements based on all the testimony we heard over that summer. I think I saw a hand over.
Hi, my name is Taryn. I work in hospitality. So this is my world, but not here. I work at Cascada up in Portland, and one of the, whoever's been, yay, thank you. Anyways, one of the major pain points that I've had since being in Oregon, and I've worked in 9 states, yes, is IME scheduling. And it is a major pain point for employers, because we're still having to pay all these losses and all of these things if we potentially can't get the worker back to work. Is that something that can kind of get to committee? Has that been discussed? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, IMEs are difficult. I think scheduling IMEs is really coming down to provider access again, and circling back to that greater care problem in Oregon, as far as, you know, having the medical providers available to not only just do the IMEs, but treat our injured workers in general, right? You know, I would suggest, I guess, if I were in your position, to really, you know, utilize all those IME vendors out there to help identify a schedule that works best for you. But ultimately, you know, I think the ultimate goal is to get the injured worker back to medically stationary, to ensure that, you know, time loss is minimal, both for that injured worker and the employer. You know, is there a bigger plate that we could take on that could look at IMEs and scheduling in general? Sure, but I think, again, that comes back to, you know, those IME companies and having that schedule availability, and providers who are actually able to take on those IMEs, right? If their schedule's already filled, how are they gonna take those on? I think, yeah, that's kind of where I put it. I don't know, anything to add?
And just one thing that maybe is a tangent, but we spent a lot of time a couple of years ago, and it's on, we have a work plan for things that we don't finish working on, and it's about open-ended time loss. So that was something, and it kind of related to not being able to get those medical evaluations, and so people are just forever and ever on leave. And so we never did solve, we didn't solve it. So it's on our work plan, but you know, I would encourage you and the person before just to come to our meetings and do public comment. We really listen to those things. It's very nice. It's exciting to hear people with ideas, and that our work, which seems like arcane, like people, it's really important. So thank you for bringing those forward.
Great call. Yeah. Well, I'll hijack for 1 sec. One thing that I would say is, I think this kind of stakeholder engagement is really helpful for us and to understand the issues and to understand things and kind of connect those into how we're looking at things. And is that a rule issue? Is it a law issue? Is it a, you know, some other thing entirely? So we would recommend as well, we already clapped for our wonderful support staff. contacting and emailing Terry and saying, is it a public comment that you want to give? Is it something that you would be interested in kind of doing a bigger presentation, getting on the agenda for, potentially getting on the work plan? That's something, and Terry and Baba do an amazing job kind of helping coordinate that. So did want to flag, as you mentioned, something that could be brought up later.
IMEs are just like another arm, if you will, of like the access to care issue, right? So we have, you can call it a provider shortage or a vacancy crisis around healthcare providers in the state of Oregon. It is a slightly more microscopic issue when we're talking about this specific type of care setting, but it's a problem for everyone, right? So the solutions that we are working through and having conversations around to try and bring to the table in whatever fashion, whether that's legislature or removing barriers by rule, is hopefully going to snowball into improved access to care across the state for all like needs, right? Because IME provider or a first report of injury provider, we need more of them available to our community to actually do the work, right? So it's the complexities around some of the administrative piece, but we also, like, these are people trying to take care of people. We need to find and give more capacity to the people who are trying to take care of people.
All right, good time for a couple more questions. Or have a list of questions that it's more interesting coming from you all. Anybody have any questions or comments? No? Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diane. I work at Kaiser. This week is Nurses Congratulation Week. I want to say to Emily, thank you for all that you do. You're so appreciated.
Expect a second drink ticket.
Yeah, so might have a couple. You want to, I can ask a question. I'll ask one here. So what happens when MLAC can't reach an agreement, whether within your own caucus or between, is caucuses the plural of caucus, caucus? I don't know.
I don't think it's Hawkeye. I don't think it's Hawkeye. Admittedly, I just don't.
So it's surprising, but it is a rock, paper, scissors game between you. Just kidding. I think that's I can talk about, so getting on during COVID, and I think right as we were dealing with a lot of the issues, the very kind of critical issues, emergency issues in COVID, where there was a lot of, this was before the affirmation. So there was, it was a lot more hostile, a lot more desperate, a lot more kind of a confusing, desperate time, especially for work comp and just the emergency that the pandemic was presenting everywhere across all facets of life. I think one of the things that came out of that is what we call MLAC 2.0, and this idea of having a lot more kind of collaborative way of moving forward on these issues, because I know that things pretty much deadlocked entirely on all the issues previously, and I was around to see a lot of that. And so we've very carefully kind of gone through and revamped the way that we do the process, the way that we collaborate with each other, the way that we're willing to work on subcommittees together and kind of commit to that work and defer things to subcommittees where there isn't sort of uniform agreement, because that's one of the, as mentioned by Administrator West, the ideas of this is a very delicate system with tons and tons of stakeholders. It's this like intricate web that touches every facet of industry within the state. And if we're going to do something of a simple majority vote or flip something over here, that's going to kind of unravel a lot of things very quickly in a very difficult way to put back together. So I think there aren't really times where we can't find consensus. And if we can't find consensus, it's because the work's not done yet. And we have an understanding that we then kind of punt that to a subcommittee to buy the time. And a lot of it's stakeholder engagement. The stakeholders haven't come up with a solution yet. So that we want to give them time and support to work through the process to come to something that we can get uniform consensus on, as something that, in bargaining, I may not be happy with the contract that I get or the agreement or the deal that I get, but I respect that everybody isn't, and that means it's probably fair. in a sense. So I think that's kind of my take and understanding, and I know I have a little bit of a unique perspective being in that kind of older form of MLAC as well, but I don't know who else wants to, Patrick, I mean, if you're co-chair.
I
Speak to management's perspective.
I think you answered it very, very well. And you know, I don't have that perspective from the time before, but I think COVID was a weird, you know, time. Just, there were weird decisions that had to be made. But I really feel like the relationship between Scott and I feel real confident, like, if I say like management really isn't on board with this, he respects that. And I do the same with labor. And I think in the end result, we don't really, I wish we could decide things on our own, but we don't. We get bills that we like say we support or not. And so if we don't all agree, we don't support it. I think that's basically, so it makes it pretty simple. So, and we add things to the work plan and we do subcommittees too. So.
All right, so, before we wrap up, we just, want to recognize one of our elected officials showed up, Senator Neuron Mislin, Senator for this area, so we appreciate it. And, supporting, here to support MLAC, you want to say? No, okay. So, you want to go ahead and wrap it up? We can go ahead and, yeah, if we're good. We have, a reception. The MLAC members are gonna stick around. It's your opportunity to kind of chat with them if you want, or get to know each other, networking. Also, the exhibitor booths will be here till 6. There's some food and there's some drinks. So yeah, thank you for coming to the MLAC meeting. I don't know, do I make a motion? No, I'm just kidding.
I guess all I would do would be to adjourn the meeting. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Oh, okay. Do you want to say?